Hi and welcome to everyone. This video is a shout out to and for Andrew Yang, the candidate for the Democratic nomination for the US presidency race. And the reason why I want to do this video is actually because I believe that Andrew is a very special candidate, and I dearly would love for him to win. I believe, the future of the planet, the future of America, but consequently of the whole planet will be much better with such a president. The reason why I think that Andrew is a once-in-a-lifetime candidate is that he is coming up clearly with a lot of interesting policies, but especially he is one-in-a-lifetime candidate because he is coming up with a new economic platform that represents a breakaway equally from the neoliberal economics, but also from Keynesian economics, and a new economic platform that, in my view, will create a much more equal and prosperous society. So definitely a society in which I would love to live in. So this new economic platform is based on two pillars. One of it is UBI, Universal Basic Income, and the second of it is a VAT tax to pay for the UBI. Now, I would like, these are two revolutions for the American economy and society, that because they don't have any of the two at the moment. Now, let's examine them separately. First of all, UBI, Universal Basic Income. Now, this is $1,000 per month, or Andrew fixed it to $1,000 per month for each American adult start at the age 18. So this is thought by Andrew as a right of citizenship. And so it's not temporary, is not supposed to go away. It means that you will get it since you are 18 until you die. Now, if you think about this is an enormous amount of money over a lifetime that the government gives to people. And consequently, this will have an enormous impact on the economy and on the society. So we need to think in this way. You may as well stop this video and think it out for yourself. But such a change will have so far-fetched consequences that it is difficult actually to list all of them at the moment. But you cannot help but think that these consequences will be enormously positive for the American society. This is not just money. These are economic security, financial security. It means to create a society with much less stress, with much more positivity in looking to the future. Now, to me it seems a little bit funny to see all these debates in America about these very deep and disturbing problems that American society has got, like, for example, racism or addiction or mass shooting. You see, all these problems will never go away in a society in which there is a lot of financial insecurity. When people have got their shoulder just against the wall, they will not think rationally, and all the bad things we see now are just the consequences of of an economy that doesn't work for the people. Consequently, you see, the introduction of UBI will actually have the effect, if not to eliminate this problem, to severely mitigate them. And consequently, it's going to be much easier to tackle all this problem after UBI is introduced. Because they will have a much smaller impact on the American society. You see, when you think about something like UBI, the problem is not, it should never be, actually the question should never be if it is good for people, but the question you should ask yourself is just if you can afford it. That is the only question to ask, because it is undoubtedly, in my opinion, that this kind of policy will have such a positive effect on the life of people. But I would like also to stress another point actually here, that I believe people do not understand, or has not been underlined enough. You see, the point here that I want to make is that UBI, Andrew thinks UBI as a right of citizenship. And in this, he reminds me of FDR. We may have forgot that, but FDR went in front of the American Congress in 1944 and basically talked to the Congress about a new economic Bill of Rights. So a second Bill of Rights or an economic Bill of Rights. What did he mean with it? So he meant that, in his opinion, at that time, back in 1944, he thought that there was the possibility to actually extend the rights of citizenship, so that they have to include housing, they could include food, they could include health care. So this is such a, that was such a great dream that never came to fruition. But, if you think about, if Andrew gets elected and UBI becomes reality, that same dream gets realized there and then. $1,000 per month is enough for people to buy their own housing and their own food. And that is the realization of that dream. But also, in my opinion, that is the smart realization of that dream. So what do I mean with the smart realization of Roosevelt Economic Bill of Rights? Well, you see, Andrew wants to give us money, not goods and services. He doesn't want to give us directly housing or food. And that's the problem with our current welfare state. Current welfare state give us actually goods and services, or money that are tied up to these goods and services. So we can use this money just to buy food or to rent an apartment. You see, there is a huge psychological implication with this kind of welfare state, because the psychological implication is that the government doesn't trust us. It doesn't trust that we will make the best use with money. And that is wrong. That is deeply wrong, because there is a say that I have in my mind, that it goes like this, more or less. So there is nothing make people stupid more than to treat them as stupid. And that is actually what happened in this case. If you don't give people the freedom if you want to help people, but you don't give people the freedom to choose, to look after themselves, if you micromanage people, then of course these people will not feel encouraged to get better of what they are, to improve, to wise up. So if you want to help people, and if you give them a certain amount of money, then these people are going to be challenged to make the best use of it. Of course, they will make mistakes, but they will learn from those mistakes, and they will be able then to make a ever better use of this money. You see, universal basic income reminds me a lot of the time in which I went to university. That was the time that for the first time I left my parents' house, and I was on my own. I had to look after myself. I did receive a small income from my parents, but of course I needed to make sure that was enough to sustain me when I was studying. For the first time, I have to list all the things I need to run my life. So that was a great time of growth, and it was at the same time, the moment in which, if you want, I became an adult. When I look back to university, I always think that, I learned, there was of course the academic learning that was important, but equally important was what I learned outside university. And I believe it is the same for all of you, no? I believe all of you can remember the first time you left your parents' house, you went on your own. That was a great time of discovery, of learning, of growth, and and becoming mature. You see, the good of UBI, it is that it doesn't eliminate meritocracy, but it moves it on another level. Because everybody will receive the same amount of money, $1,000 per month. But some people will be able to make it go a long way, so they will get a qualification out of it, or enough savings to buy a house. Some other people, of course, initially will not be able to achieve the same result, but they will be stimulated, of course, to get at par with the people that made the best use of it. So UBI, on the contrary of the current welfare state that gives us goods and services, will keep the public smart, will keep the society sharp. So the second pillar of Andrew's economic platform is the introduction of a VAT tax. Now, this represents a novelty for the American tax system, and it is actually a revolution. It is a revolution in the philosophy of taxation, because you see, with the introduction of a VAT tax, you are shifting the tax burden from direct to indirect taxation. That is, you are starting to tax people not for what they own, but for what they do. So this is a complete change into the philosophy of taxation. And the reason why Andrew does that is because he needs a steady income in order to finance the UBI. So he has realized, he is acknowledging that direct taxation has failed over the time. So the rich have dodged direct taxation successfully over the time, and they found whichever loophole, they move capital around the world. So in any other way, they found a way to get away from taxation. So on the other side, instead, VAT is a tax that is very difficult to dodge, as is proven by its application all over the world. So that's the reason why Andrew is proposing the introduction of a VAT tax, because he acknowledged basically that he's not going to be able to pay for UBI if he relies just on direct taxation. Now, the problem here is that unfortunately the VAT tax has got a bad reputation, to be a regressive tax. And you can easily understand that, because if you apply a 10% VAT tax on a pair of pants that costs £10 or $10 in this case, then that pair of pants will cost on the market $11, and with the $1 of tax applied to it, that dollar is going to be paid by the rich as well as by the poor. So this tax does not distinguish between rich and poor. For this reason, it is thought as a regressive tax. But now, let's consider this. So let's assume that we devise the VAT tax in a way that it exempts all the basic staples. It has a rate of 10% over generic staples, and has got a rate of 30% over luxury staples or luxury goods or services. Now, would you still think that this is a regressive tax? Of course it's not. It's just stupid to think in this way. The truth about the VAT is that it is a very flexible tax. So if it can be regressive and it is progressive. It depends how it is applied. But my point is that the VAT tax is definitely a progressive tax if it is used to finance a UBI, a universal basic income. Because you see, you need to think counterintuitively in here. If intuitively you understand that if the government apply a fixed tax, that will benefit the rich. Counterintuitively, you understand that a fixed income benefits the poor. Because of course a fixed income has got a much bigger incidence over lower income than over a high income. So that's the reason why the introduction of a fixed income will benefit the poor, and basically the poor will need to spend a lot of money to eat up his £1,000 to spend it into to pay for the VAT tax. So, for example, if you think that there's going to be widespread 10% VAT tax in the market, then you will need to think that in order for that VAT tax to eat up your $1,000 per month, you will need to spend £10,000 in goods and services each month in order, for that dividend to be used, for that income to be absorbed completely by this tax. So, if you think about that, this is a tax that penalizes the people that are actually high consumers, the people that spend a lot of money over the month. Consequently, this is a tax that will hit hard on the rich. Now, Andrew Yang is a great communicator. So he's got what is called high conversion rate. That is, a lot of people that are listening to him and they end up to sustain him, because he has got a very clear way to explain his policies, the reason for them, what would be the consequences of their application, and so on. At this regard, actually, I'm going to insert in the description of this video a link to the interview he did with Joe Rogan at the beginning of this year, in which he extensively explained his policies, and definitely it is something that I would like all of you to have a look, so that you can make up your own mind about what he's saying. So because Andrew is such a great communicator, so he has grown steadily in his campaign from 2017 to now. So he is passed from a completely unknown person to a candidate that is now polling around 5% nationally. So this is a great candidate, a candidate that has got a shot to win the election. But unfortunately, there are two big obstacles to his win. These two big obstacles are, from one side, are the rich. Now, you will need to think about that the UBI policy is a policy that has got a cost of $3 trillion. Just to give you an idea of its magnitude, you need to think about that the budget of the United States in 2018 has been of $4 trillion. So Andrew, with his policy, planned to move a lot of money around. And in particular, his policy will imply a lot of redistribution of wealth from the rich to the poor. The rich do not want that, of course. So for this reason, what they do, they deploy the media that they own against him. So the rich own what is called all the corporate media. So CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, New York Times, Washington Post, local news outlet. So you need to think that basically the rich has got a stranglehold on almost all the information you get. And they are using it, they are always being using this power against any kind of progressive candidate, not just against Andrew, but any kind of progressive candidate. So any kind of candidate that wants to apply a redistribution of wealth from the rich to the poor. And they are so used to it that they have developed some standard technique. For example, one technique they apply is that for each progressive candidate that is not known to the public, so they just disregard him or her. So they just aim not to put his or her ideas in front of the people, so that the people will never know about these ideas. And that is a simple technique. So in fact, if you see about Andrew, even if he's polling 5% on a national level, he's actually got very little time on the corporate media. But that is not a problem for them, because even if Andrew grow even more, they will start instead to go further and start to treat him differently. Instead of disregarding him, they are going to openly attack his policies. They will going to tell people that these are unrealizable policies, that are the American public can afford them, that somehow there is going to be something wrong with them. So this is the first big obstacles that Andrew, as any other progressive candidate, has got anytime that is presenting herself or himself in front of the public. The second big obstacle is a surprising one. And the second big obstacle is an obstacle that actually is coming from the left. Andrew has been attacked by a lot of internet outlets like TYT, Secular Talk, The Rational National. So a lot of the heroes that basically carried the success of Sanders' campaign in 2016. So this outlet supported Bernie in 2016, and they are still supporting him, and that is absolutely fine. But unfortunately, they look at Andrew from the perspective of a Keynesian economic. And they don't recognize how his policy, how his economic plan would actually benefit the poor. And actually, his economic plan would be a much more effective way to deliver a more equal and more prosperous society. They don't look to his economic policy with an open mind, and they see that he wants to apply a VAT, and consequently they consider a VAT as aggressive tax, and in whichever shape or form, and consequently they don't trust Andrew. So when I think about them in a certain way, it come in my mind the words of Max Planck. Now, Max Planck was a physicist that was active at the beginning of the 20th century. And he was one of the first to discover Albert Einstein. And at the time, of course, there was a ferocious struggle between the carrier of the traditional physics, the Newtonian physics, and the new theory of relativity of Einstein, the new physics that Einstein introduced. Now, you see, at the time, all the people that had grown up studying Newtonian physics, either they couldn't understand the theory of relativity, or simply, when they were looking at it, they thought it was wrong. They couldn't see how actually it was solving some of the basic contradictions that were within the Newtonian physics. And so Max Planck, basically, he was amongst the one that understood how the relativistic theory of Einstein was actually so good in solving so many problems that were upon Newtonian physics. And as well, he was very disappointed by the fact that a lot of his colleagues couldn't actually understand it. So during that period, Max Planck made this famous quote: "A new scientific truth does not triumph by convincing his opponent and making them see the light, but rather because his opponent eventually die, and a new generation grows up that is familiar with it." So, this quote actually comes to my mind when I think about the current situation on the left. This struggle between the people that are still sustaining Keynesian economic perspective, and the people that actually believe in the new platform that Andrew is proposing. Yes, that's exactly what's happened, basically. People that have grown studying Keynesian economic and believing that Keynesian economic is the only way to realize an equal and prosperous society, will have a huge struggle to understand the new platform that Andrew is proposing, and understanding that that platform is actually a better way to reach the same goal, especially in the modern economy, in an economy that is so different from the one in which John Maynard Keynes actually was operating. Anyway, this video is now finished. I really hope that you will consider the ideas and the policies of Andrew Yang, candidate to the Democratic nomination for the American presidency. I really hope that you end up to support him and to vote for him, because quite clearly I believe that his policies and his ideas, if applied, they will create a much better society, a much more prosperous and equal society in America, and potentially these ideas, these policies will spread all around the world, so to create a much better planet to live in. Thank you very much.